Hi everyone, welcome to Tring Brewery for our second virtual beer tasting. Welcome. My name is Matthew and I'm here to introduce Jared Ward from Tring Brewery. Hi Jared.
Hi there. Hi.
So I'd like to start off while we're enjoying this lovely beer together by asking you a little bit about the brewery. So tell me about Tring.
Yeah, so Tring Brewery, we were started in 1992 by our director Richard Shardlow. So he comes from a brewing background, so he trained as a brewer at Ruddles before going on to found a brewery engineer service with his father Peter, and they travelled all across the world. So they went to like China and Russia and all kinds of far-flung corners of the earth, building microbreweries. And then it came time that Richard thought he should have a showroom to present his engineering. So he built this little brew house in Tring, not the one that we're in today, just down the road. And then it turned out that the locals liked to drink ale, and we kind of got going from there, really. Yeah. So
yeah, cool. Okay. And what sort of would you say is your kind of inimitable style here at Tring?
Sure. I would say traditional cask ale. We've started to look at more kind of like progressive styles, but yeah, our background, our grounding is in traditional styles. We are, right in the middle of the home counties, surrounded by lovely green areas with our big country pubs, and British cask ale. There's nothing quite like it. So stuff like bitters, golden ales, stouts, milds. That's what we've really been perfecting over the last 25 years.
Yeah, it's a lovely setting here, I have to say. We're by a nice little farm, and we've got the lovely Chilterns in the background, so it's a lovely place to be, and I'm looking forward to getting on with the beers. So stand by everyone, get your beers ready. We're going to be starting in a few moments with Side Pocket for a Toad. See you in a minute. Right, so our first beer of the evening is Side Pocket for a Toad, one of Tring Brewery's flagship beers. So crack it open, Jared, and chat a bit about that.
Here we go.
Lovely. You may notice we're only having little tasting measures in these glasses, not because we're not enjoying the beer, but just to make sure that we're not slurring by the end of the video. Rest assured we are enjoying it, as hopefully you will be. So, I suppose the first question people are going to ask, Jared, is what's the name all about?
Yeah, absolutely, and rightly so. Yeah. So, with all of our core range beers, we try and kind of draw inspiration from the county around us, Hertfordshire, which is steeped in loads of really great history and loads of really great folklore as well. So, Side Pocket for a Toad, our flagship beer. It's an old Hertfordshire saying. Much akin to chocolate teapot. It's if something's useless, if it has no use, then it's a side pocket for a toad. So yeah, we're just trying to get the phrase back into common parlance, and everyone seems to enjoy it. So yeah, we're happy with that.
I like that. The only trouble is, of course, you naturally shorten it to side pocket and miss out.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, that's fair enough. So tell me a bit about the beer. Obviously, we can see it's a golden ale, but tell me a bit about it.
Sure. Yeah. So. As I said, this is our flagship beer. It hasn't always been that way. It kind of took over from Ridgeway, which we'll go on to later, in the early 2000s. It was first brewed in the year 2000 by Andrew Jackson, who's our second director that joined Richard Shardlow in that year. He comes from a brewing background, so from Whitbread himself. And when he joined here, he wanted to kind of brew a light, easy drinking style. Hence, why it's kind of gone on to become the flagship. It's a golden ale. It's hopped with American Cascade, so it's kind of got a nice citrusy note. But yeah, should be quite drinkable, hopefully.
Yeah, right, well, let's have a taste. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, that is really lovely. It's really light. That's what, 4.5%, so reasonably sessionable, I'd say. Yeah. But you do get that lovely kind of bright zinginess on the nose, don't you? And then it's actually surprisingly malty, I think, when you tuck in, but there's definitely that citrus hint there.
Sure. Yeah. Well, when we first brewed it, it was the style is a golden ale, which at the time it was a very, very progressive style. It was one of the first times in the UK that we'd managed to not just as a brewery but as an industry import American hops.
Of course.
So we were using the American hops and putting them in a lighter coloured ale, so not as kind of malt forward as a stout or a mild, to kind of showcase those lovely floral aromas. But yeah, as with classic British styles. It has got a nice strong malty backbone, so you do get a bit of biscuit in there. But yeah, it's kind of balanced out with the kind of floral grassy notes that you get from the American Cascade.
Yeah, I think it's balanced really well, and of course, bringing it back then, it must have been so exciting to be able to use Cascade hops, which no one had ever heard of over here.
Absolutely, yeah. We first started using it, and it's laughable now because it is our flagship beer, but when we first brought it out, it was a lot of people found it offensively bitter because it was the first time they tried something that was so kind of low in the sweetness and the biscuitiness that you get from the malt, from like a mild or a bitter, and it was quite assertive in its hop presence, and it had that extra bitterness. But these days, as palates evolve, and we'll go on to stuff like Pale 4, which has got a lot higher IBUs, a lot more bitterness units. Side Pocket has now become our flagship because it has got that depth of flavour and complexity, but it's very drinkable at the same time.
It certainly is. Yeah, I hope you're all enjoying drinking it. But do go at your own pace. We'll have plenty of opportunities for you to pause. But we'll see you in a few minutes for the second in our lineup tonight. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're ready to move on to beer number 2. I know we are. So next up, we're going to be tasting the Pale 4. So go ahead.
Awesome.
Let's crack it open.
So yeah, this is our Pale 4.
Yes.
This is quite recent to the bottle range. Obviously, it's a more progressive style. One of the more recent ones we brought out.
Thank you very much. So yeah, I wanted to ask, what was the inspiration behind this? Because it kind of feels almost like it's a UK-US collaboration, like it's a sort of English-style pale ale, but with lots of lovely American hops. So yeah, tell me about that.
Sure. So as I said, we are grounded as a traditional brewery, but everything evolves. Side Pocket was our first dabble into American hops. And as I said, when we brought Side Pocket out, people found it offensively bitter, and now it's kind of become your most accessible beer on the bar. Exactly. The Pale 4, when we went for the Pale 4, we were just kind of trying to up that, really. So you can see that it has got like a nice malty backbone. It has got almost an hue to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's quite robust when you taste it. It's got quite a nice mouthfeel. So again, we didn't really strip back the malts. We kind of kept the malty backbone, but just added as many hops as we could get our hands on, really. And it was it first started out as a collaboration between ourselves and a local retailer, independent beer shop called Beer Shop in St Albans. Started out as a collaboration with them, and people liked it so much that we haven't stopped brewing it since. So that's the story behind Pale 4.
Well, yeah, I think it balances really well because you have got those lovely fruity, citrusy, maybe even a little bit of tropical flavours from those American hops, but with that really nice malty backbone. I think that just balances up so well, and I suppose it's almost kind of hop bursted for you guys, really. So yeah, it's lovely. So dive in, everyone, and see what you think.
Cheers.
I'm a big fan of this beer. Cheers. Yeah, that's really nice. It's just. It has, as you say, it's got that lovely mouthfeel. It goes down almost creamy. Yeah. And it's just really well rounded, I think.
Yeah.
Lovely.
It was started as a West Coast IPA, so it has got quite a lot of business.
Yeah, hot profile.
Yeah, exactly. And traditionally West Coast IPAs, they're brewed to have quite a forward hop presence, so quite a lot of bitterness. Yeah. But even the kind of American ones, the very assertive ones, such as your Sierra Nevada and your Anchor, they will have quite robust malt backbones to kind of stand up to the bitterness from the hops.
I think you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's quite a robust beer.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's like you're saying. I think you need that kind of that almost slightly sweet malty backbone to stand up to the bitterness from those hugely aromatic hops. So Yeah, it works really well. And you've got Amarillo, Cascade, Simcoe, is it Citra in there? So
yeah,
that's a nice lineup, I think.
Yes, you've got the old school ones in there, such as Cascade and Amarillo, which will give you kind of grassy, almost resiny notes to the beer. But then you've got the Citra and the Simcoe, which are going to give you the fruitiness as well.
Yeah.
So quite a fruity beer, but you do have that assertive bitterness as well.
Exactly. Well, I am a big fan of this beer, so I'm going to enjoy the rest of this. Hope you guys are enjoying it too, and we will see you in a few minutes for round 3. Hi everyone, welcome back. We are now going to be moving on to another one of, I would say, Tring's absolute flagship beers, the Ridgeway Bitter. So, glasses at the ready, and we're going to crack it open and drink it with you. So, go ahead and do the honours. That's such a good sound.
The bottle. As I'm pouring it, you will notice, compared to the last 2 beers, it has got a deeper hue to it.
Indeed, have a look at that. That is quite a lovely colour, I think. So, I suppose the first question, and people ask me this a lot, is how would you define a bitter? That's a good place to start, I think. Yeah,
it's a term these days that kind of serves to confuse more than it does to educate. It's quite a hard one because if you're starting with beers like Side Pocket and Pale 4, the bitterness units in them are quite high.
Yeah.
But you've got to if you contextualise it, it makes sense. So historically, before we had bitters, we had milds, and milds are a lot darker in colour. And with those deeper, darker malts, such as Match and Mild, very dark colour. With those deeper, darker malts, you're going to get a lot more sweetness in your beer. The less of the dark malts you have, and the lighter malt that you use, the more you're going to get hops coming through. So when we first started brewing these kind of lighter coloured beers, as you'll see, it's not completely golden, but it's more like copper colour.
Yeah, caramelly gold.
Yeah, and you where you trade off with the colour, you're also losing a lot more of the malt flavour, so the sweetness doesn't balance out the bitterness as much, so the bitterness is more forward. Yeah. So after this became the drink of the day, and after it kind of superseded mild, to the drinker's palate, it was very, very bitter, because it was probably the first time that they had a beer that they could discern the hops in just by tasting. Before that, it would have been mild porters and stouts, very, very malt forward beers. So this is one of the first examples of a beer that you can get quite a lot of hop characteristic coming through from. So it is quite bitter, but certainly not compared to modern styles.
Yeah, exactly. It's still ultimately got a fairly malty backbone in terms of modern styles of beer, for sure, because it's not all about those huge aromatic hops, it's more just about gentle bittering, I think. Yeah. Which is lovely. So do dive in and we'll have a taste of this. So
cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, that's really nice. I mean, it's kind of, bitter in terms of a style of beer can be a bit of a nebulous phrase, as you've very nicely explained. But I think this kind of is just a classic bitter, really. Yeah. In many ways, it's got lovely sort of nuttiness to it, almost. But ultimately, it is characterised by that bitterness that shines through.
Yeah. So it's I think bitters for me. When I first started getting into beer, I was very much into very hop forward IPAs, very challenging beers. Yeah. And coming from that slant, it does make it a little bit harder to get into bitters because, generationally you might see your dad drinking a bitter and think, it's fuddy-duddy and you want to disassociate yourself from that and go for the more challenging beers.
Almost a bit too traditional, I suppose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think the best, and it is one of my favourite styles these days, the best thing about a bitter is it's low strength, but it's got so much complexity.
Yeah.
With every sip, there's kind of layers of biscuit and caramel.
Yeah.
And it's not assertive, but then it kind of makes you go searching for those layers.
Yeah.
So what may appear as something almost boring from the outset, a traditional English bitter. Sit down with a pint or two or three and just go searching for those flavours, and it is a beer style that keeps on giving, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, you'll hit the bitterness at first, but then as it moves through your palate, that carameliness and biscuitiness that you mentioned really comes through, and it's got a real character. And I think, in the wine world we talk about a vin méditatif, and I think this is sort of like the beer equivalent, a bière méditatif, if you like. It's one to sit and just sort of really sip and savour and enjoy, not one to just neck down and get drunk with. Exactly. I'm sure you could do that as well.
I've been there.
But yeah, I think it's really lovely for that. It's a complex beer when you get to know it. I think that's really nice, and it's a good flagship.
Well, yeah, as I said, it was. It's the beer that Tring Brewery started with in 1992 as our very first beer. So it was always going to be a more traditional style, and I think that British breweries should be more proud of their backgrounds and their histories in terms of the style. If you look at France and Italy, or even most of the rest of Europe, they're very proud of their food and drinks culture, and we're quite stum about it over here. And I think something incredibly unique to the UK is just a pint of cask bitter in a British pub, and that is quintessentially British, and I think it should be celebrated a lot more than it is. Because there's nothing quite like it, and I really enjoy bitters.
Yeah, I quite agree, and I think this is a really good example of one. And if you ever get a chance to try a good ESB or extra special bitter as well, I think that's one of the greatest styles of beer possibly that there is. So, I think try more bitters, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at what you find. Anyway, hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you in a minute for the final beer of the evening. Hello everyone, welcome back. Part 4, we're going to be tasting the final beer of the evening, which is evocatively entitled Death or Glory. So, Jared, crack it open, let's have a taste. I'm dying to taste it. Tell me, what's the story with Death or Glory?
The story with Death or Glory is one of the founding members of the brewery, Kurt Hill. He was in one of the regiments of the Royal Lancers, and so we actually brew this. We brew this by appointment to the Queen's Royal Lancers. It took a bit of deliberation, like what kind of beer they'd like, but the motif is Death or Glory, so they wanted something suitably strong, suitably assertive, and we did actually only brew it once a year to commemorate the Charge of the Light Brigade, but it is our strongest style, but what I would say is our most award-winning style as well. So soon that fell into the core range, and we've been brewing it ever since. And it has kind of this cult status behind it. So.
It does, yeah. It's a really interesting beer. I think it's probably the first Tring Brewery beer I ever tasted, actually, way back, whenever that was. But yeah, I mean, one thing I guess people are going to be dying to ask is, the bottle says it's a strong ale, but gives no more clues than that. How would you define it?
Yes, so style-wise, it's kind of like porters and stouts. One man's porter is another man's stout. It's a strong ale, which kind of just is a reference to the strength of it. It's 7.2%. Yeah. But how we classify it is a barley wine. Which again is one of those terms that confuses a few people. It's not a wine in the respect that it's made from grapes at all, but it's kind of where the origin of the term is when we were having wars with the French, and they cut off our supply of wine from France. We started brewing stronger beers to kind of satisfy the want of that kind of more robust drink. So we brewed stuff that's between 7 and it goes all the way up to about 14%. They are a wine made from barley, so it's a beer. But it's quite a strong beer, so in effect it is a barley wine. So.
Yeah, it's interesting really because 7.2, that's fairly substantial, but of course for I suppose on the barley wine spectrum it's relatively at the low end, I suppose. So it kind of depends on how you look at it. But anyway, let's get stuck in, because I think this is a tremendous beer, so I hope you all enjoy it.
Cheers.
Cheers, let's give it a go. Immediately, even before you taste it, you get so much complexity on the nose. That's just a fascinating beer that you could analyse forever. But what would you say are the first things that kind of jump out at you?
It's an interesting one. It sounds strange, but if we get people at the brewery that say that they don't like beer, we always actually suggest that they try the Death of Glory first. And that's because it's got quite a lot of sweetness to it.
Definitely.
When we get people that say they don't like beer, what their normal experience with beer is they're swig of their dad's lager when they were about 12 or 13, and they get like loads of that bitterness. And we always suggest they go for something like Death of Glory because it is a barley wine. It's more wine-like. If they're coming from that kind of slant, they're probably used to a bit more sweetness. So yeah, it's sweet, quite treacly. But we say it's deceivingly easy drinking. It's actually quite smooth for the ABV.
Very much so, yeah. I think it slips down really easily because it's just lovely and kind of mellow and creamy. It doesn't taste that strong, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think it's just got such lovely depth to it. You get immediately lots of kind of dried fruit. Almost like sort of Christmas pudding, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like a fruitcake. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think it makes a really good seasonal beer. Yeah. Kind of festive, like almost like a winter warmer. And as you say, there's sort of carameliness and treacliness and plenty of malt sweetness, but there's still kind of a hint of bitter structure to it as well, kind of. Yeah. Rounding it out, so I think that's a really
absolutely. Yeah, and you can't brew a beer this strong. As you said, it is at the weaker end of kind of barley wine territory, but it's still 7.2.
Exactly. You can't.
So. Yeah. For any other style, it'd be very, very strong.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you can't brew in that style without kind of getting your balance right. So there is naturally quite a lot of hops in there as well. They are British hops, so they're not as assertive as American hops. Yeah. But it does just kind of add to the complexity of the beer. It's one of those kind of layered beers where it starts at the front of the palate and then works its way through, and then you kind of rinse and repeat with every single sip. So yeah, it's a nice one just to sit down with by a fire.
Absolutely, and just contemplate life.
Exactly.
And presumably it's because of the relative strength that it comes in the 330 milliliter bottle as opposed to the nice big half litres that we've got here.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm guessing that's the main reason?
Yes, we kind of serve it in shorter measures.
Yeah.
I have been known to have a pint of Death of Glory on the occasion.
Why you shouldn't?
All the staff here have a Death of Glory story.
Hi everyone. So I hope you're enjoying finishing off your beers, or if you've finished them already, I hope you enjoyed them. We're just going to do a little bit of a sum up now, and so I'm going to hand over to Jared to kind of wrap things up and go.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed the beers, and thank you to Matthew and Cambridge Wines for hosting us. Yes, I hope you've enjoyed the beers, and if you do ever want to stop by, don't be a stranger. We are based in Tring, so hopefully that's local to you in some extent. Obviously with ongoing situations, we're slightly restricted in what we can do, but we hope to be starting our tours soon. But no, it'd be really awesome to see you come down to the brewery. It'd be great that you're kind of supporting the independents, even just through the purchase that you've done this evening. You're kind of helping out small business in the local area. And we like to think that manifests itself into the beers that we brew, because we do brew them with passion. And we do think it manifests itself into the retailers that we sell through as well. So Cambridge Wines done a great job curating the range tonight, and I don't doubt that they do a great job in helping you when you come in store as well. So it's really important to shop independent. But most of all, I hope you enjoyed the beers, and have a good rest of your evening.
Thanks everyone. Thank you very much to Jared and to Tring Brewery as well, and thank you all for supporting us and supporting Tring Brewery. It means a lot. I hope you enjoy the tasting. Have a great evening.
Cheers.